Alright, let's take a look at some film now. First thing is pay attention to this white box up here in the upper left, circled in blue. And also you'll see the choppy water that I circled in blue on the right. And we'll just kind of watch that as this tanker starts to head off. You'll notice that the waves certainly look choppy and quite high. Waves have to be that choppy out there, which we just know isn't true. Thank you, Lori Ferrari, for letting me use this video. I believe she filmed it off the coast of Florida, and she stayed with it a good 25 minutes, and in the description will be the link to the full video. So I'll be pointing out some things as we go along so that we can start to see exactly what's happening. Now, if you look in the background, you can probably see some buildings back there. That is not a mirage, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But a mirage would be distorted. It would have a haze effect or a watery look. And it's also not any kind of superior mirage in which things are lifted up above the water. Those buildings are just the outlines of the buildings that are actually there. So if you start looking underneath the red section of the tanker, you'll see a little white sliver showing up. And if you notice, that is just the reflection from the part of the boat, the bridge, above it. So if it's reflecting, what would it be reflecting on? It appears to be reflecting on air, doesn't it? But we know that's not what's happening. It's actually reflecting off the water, which has taken the exact color of the sky. Again, you can also keep an eye on the choppy water. You'll see she zooms out and you can almost lose it right there. I can't see it. It appears to be gone, and this is what the ancients saw. They thought the boat went over the curvature or the horizon. But we zoom back in and there it is. Now you'll notice that little white section is even more pronounced than before. The reflection is getting larger. You also see these high point waves, and you also see that band area that they call the mirage zone or the mirage band. And now you can really start to see that that boat looks like it's floating on air, but actually that is water out there that is being miraged by the sun. Same kind of mirage you see at the end of a long freeway or in the desert. That's the same thing you see there. But of course they wouldn't tell you that. So we'll zoom out again, watch that boat. Looks like it almost goes over the horizon there. And we'll zoom back in. And we can see it just scooting along on what looks like invisible air. So if you notice here in the two boxes, right and left, that the wave chops are, which would be 5 to 10 feet high. We know the waves aren't that big. Then you'll also see the black line separating where the water actually is versus where it appears to us to be. Now you'll notice that white bridge reflection is a lot bigger. Alright, back to our little tanker. And you can see now what looks like it might be floating in air, but we can clearly see, based on the bridge's reflection, that it is actually on water. You see here I drew the blue line showing exactly how high off the water the real water is, the real horizon. So you can see that the mirage is getting more and more hazy. The waves are becoming choppier. What do you see not happening? Well, you don't see buildings and other things popping up out of nowhere from the so-called area behind the curve, because it doesn't exist. So they may call this a superior mirage, and that may be true, but superior mirages are the exact same thing as a mirage, only the superior ones have a lie behind them, and that is the things you see are because they are behind the curve. There is no curve. In the video coming up soon, you'll see what swell can do and what waves can do, but there is nothing that's going to lift buildings 1,000 feet up into the sky, like looking at Chicago from Michigan. You'll see it's really getting hazy now. You can see here we almost have a complete reflection of the bridge. And you can just tell out there looking at the waves how choppy they are. So you can definitely see why people 1,000 years ago would have thought the boats were going over some sort of edge. But today it's time to admit the truth and stop lying like little girls. Right? Science? Yeah, you see we zoom out, there's no way you can see that with your own eye. It is blended in, but by zooming in, we can pick it back up. You'll see now that the white bridge section has almost become the same color as the sky. It no longer has a lot of the markings that it had before. In fact, I think we'll see it here within the next 20 seconds turn into the sky. You'll see the front end of the boat is completely chopped up now. And all that is a mirage. Nothing is floating above where it should be. It does happen on occasion, and that is called a Fata Morgana. And we'll look at those in a few minutes. But now you'll see that reflection plus the bridge of the boat has all turned into the same color as the sky. And the boat is almost completely broken up. Zoom out, there'd be no way you'd see that with your own eye. It looks almost as if two ships are moving along out there. Now at this point, that ship is 11 miles. And so if we take our equation of 8 times the distance squared, we would say 11 times 11, and then times 8, then divide that by 12, and we would get 80.66. So at 11 miles, anything under 80 feet should not be able to be seen at all. And that boat is probably a maximum of 60 or 70 feet high. Yet we can see the entire boat down to the very bottom. In fact, we even see a reflection of it in the miraged ocean out there. You can see the waves are extremely choppy back there at the edge. So hopefully that clears things up for you a little bit as far as boats miraging out there at the horizon. And we'll have a couple more examples for you coming up.
And it's gone.
So now we will talk about mirages. So you can see this mirage. I'm sure you've seen it before. You can see how far it extends. So you can at times expect the same thing from the ocean. For instance, here, and for instance in the desert here, those are actual mirages. They're not superior mirages or inferior because that's where the item actually is. Nothing is raising it up, despite what newscasters tell you. Now this image is actually a Fata Morgana, which is a copycat mirage, basically an inverted image appearing above the real image. So don't let those newscasters fool you when they talk about looming or a superior mirage, because you are actually seeing the item where it should be. It's just the water underneath it is what is being miraged. Nothing is being lifted. Now this here out in the distance is the Chicago skyline, and you are actually seeing the Chicago skyline. It is not, as this newscaster states,
we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline. Very interesting.
No, you're actually seeing the Chicago skyline.
We're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline.
Dude, because I'm a nice guy, I'm giving you one more chance. They are seeing the actual Chicago skyline.
We're actually seeing of the Chicago skyline.